Good night and welcome to another highly anticipated edition of In Touch. I'm your host, Jadia Jean-Pierre-Emmanuel. From what I've gathered, there are thousands standing by to hear the views of former Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ausbert Regis, on the recent crime report, issues related to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, and of course I know many persons are very curious to hear his thoughts on a version of events that would have led to his removal from the Office of Commissioner of Police to the Office of the Prime Minister as a special advisor to the Prime Minister. There is a lot we need to go through tonight. As usual, at the end of the program, you will be getting an opportunity to call in with your questions and to express your views on the discussion that we would have had. But I would waste no time and wish a very special welcome to Mr. Ausbert Regis to In Touch.
Thank you very much.
I must say that I had the pleasure of sharing an office with you at the Office of the Prime Minister for a short time. Now that you have proceeded on retirement, I must tell you that your humor and your guidance is being missed in the Office of the Prime Minister. Wow. How has retirement been?
It's been good.
What have you been up to? You have been very absent. We do not hear much from you in the public discourse. We do not see much of you. What have you been up to?
Well, I'm a genuine country mouse. I stay up in the hills. Farming has been my passion for a long time. Mm-hmm. Although I don't find it profitable, but I find it very therapeutic. Help, you know, and it gives me something to do. So as you mentioned, I demitted office from the 1st of February 2014. And since then, I have been engaged, in addition to my own private settings, doing my farming and whatever else I choose to do, trying to keep myself gainfully occupied. I've also been involved in a number of activities. For example, I'm currently the chairperson of the Dennery South Disaster Preparedness Committee. I have been a member of that committee for decades. I have been involved in training with NEMO. I've been involved in assisting the Ministry of Education, different schools in the school safety programs. I've participated in a number of professional development days. I've also done some work with RSS, with USAID, with, you know.
You've been busy.
And
that does not sound like retirement to me.
Well, I'm retired, I'm not expired.
So you have been busy.
I don't think that I've passed my best by date.
Oh.
So I'm still a little useful there. And I must tell you that this is all voluntary. Least anybody think that I'm making any change out of it. I'm still,
So you're not yet a consultant?
No, no.
You don't
well, I'm not a paid consultant.
Okay.
But people do seek my counsel on things. It makes no sense when you have acquired a lifetime of experience, especially in a very specialized field like law enforcement, especially law enforcement executive. I don't want to be that person when I'm dead. Somebody can write in my tombstone, "There lies Ausbert Regis. He knew a lot about many things and taught nobody." Oh. Yeah? I'm a teacher by nature and I share. I think that's the way we will grow. That's the way the country has to grow when you develop persons. You know, nobody lives forever, and you have to share. Share what you know, because what I know emanated from another person's brain. True. The brains of several persons before me. True. So I've been involved in a lot of that sort of activity, and I am available, you know, to share whatever I know, which might not be much, but I am prepared to share it.
I was listening to the groups that you have been involved with and where you share your knowledge, and I'm wondering, are you currently involved in any way providing guidance and support to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, or perhaps to, you know, other arms of law enforcement?
The police force, not in any structured way, but officers meet me at all levels and seek my advice and things. And I don't think a single officer can say that I've ever refused them advice, just to share ideas, and if they have challenges, I do that. Also, bodily, I've done a number of sessions with bodily, the correctional officers, both the civilian staff and the officers, things of professional development, ethics, and related subjects. And I think it's good for me in that it keeps me refreshed. Every time I have to research something to deliver, I'm reminded of that thing, and it also gives me a new perspective, a different perspective, a deeper perspective. So yes, I'm involved with this. I have had discussions with the Deputy Chief Fire Officer, and well, as you know, the turbulent period they went through, he said as soon as they settled, I am prepared to provide what I have.
Provide your assistance.
Yeah.
It is impossible to discuss what you're doing now without touching on the events that would have led to your removal, for want of a better word. Some may say the proper word is transfer, from Commissioner of Police, the Office of Commissioner of Police, to the Office of the Prime Minister. You would have served as Commissioner of Police from 2003 to 2010, I believe.
Yes, in actual office, but in real terms, 2012, because of the court decision, and that is when I was formally promoted, not transferred, but promoted.
Oh, promoted.
Yes, the transfer was unsuccessful. It was successfully challenged, and I got promoted because even when I won my case, there are a lot of people who thought that I fought that case, that decision, because I wanted to remain Commissioner of Police. There was something there in there and so on.
Yes,
after being in that for a while, I mean, gosh, it was not about that. It was about the principle involved. But I knew that I did not want to go back in there, but I felt that what was done was wrong, and it was a matter between me, the employee, and the government, my employer. And I felt that I was wronged, and I decided to challenge. Now, I'm the kind of person who do not start a fight, but I don't back away from one. Yeah? And I do it quietly. But I must say that 2 calls I received when I was transferred that really inspired me to fight. They were from 2 of my former bosses and colleagues. This is ex-superintendent Norbert Frederick and Cuthbert Phillips. When the news item came the Monday after the Prime Minister's announcement, I got a call from, it was Mr. Andrew Frederick, Norbert Frederick first, and says that, Ausbert, Ausbert, I heard you taking the fellas to court. I said, yes, sir. I still call him sir, even if I was commissioner, Yeah, man. Don't let them, what happened to me and my brothers there? We ought to have fought, but we did not fight. We got the money. Yes, I did a lot of things with the money. But what's now? It's 22 years now, the money finished, and my name still is not cleared. So, man, fight them for me and my brother. That was deep for me. No sooner the phone rang, I put the phone down, the phone rang, and Cuthbert Phillips called and says that, Chief, I understand you're taking the fellows to court. I partly feel responsible for what's happening to you, because perhaps if I had fought government at the time when I was removed unceremoniously, you would not have to face that problem. That cemented it for me. And he told me, fight them for me, fight them for you, and fight them for every other commissioner. who was going to be on that seat. That for me was what, if there were any doubts in my mind that I was doing the right thing, these two calls. Now I received hundreds of calls in support.
I can imagine.
But these two calls did it for me.
Having walked that road
Having
before.
walked that road before. And I had a discussion at Mr. Frederick's burial when his daughter came to me and said, Daddy was very weak when you won your case. And when I told him that you had won your case, he smiled.
He celebrated with you. What about the decision back then made you feel so strongly that what was happening was wrong? And what was that period like for you as Commissioner of Police then, learning that the cabinet or the government had taken a decision to remove you as Commissioner?
I felt that I had done nothing wrong to deserve that kind of treatment. I felt that it was unfair, and I felt that it needed to be responded to appropriately. Now, here's my take. I am the leading law enforcement officer in the country in terms of seeing that people's rights are protected. If I cannot fight my own battles, what confidence you would have in me that I would fight yours? That if you have an issue and you come to me as head of the police force, that I will see about your case when I can't see about mine. You know, I don't want to go into why some people say it's because of politics, some people say it's because some people
have said
are not comfortable with me, some people say I was not liked, some people say a lot of things. And they will continue to say. I am not here to try to cast aspersions on anybody. It was done. I don't know what the rationale was. All I know, it was wrong. I knew it was wrong from day one. I would not leave it unchallenged, and the courts saw it that way.
Was there any discussion between you and the minister responsible at the time as to what exactly were their concerns or why such a decision was taken, or were you informed via an address to the nation like everyone else?
Well, let me say two things here. The least I say about the former minister, the better for him and for me. Yeah? And that is, I will hold my peace from there.
Who was the minister? Former minister, you mean? If it does not pain you to say his name.
Guy Myers.
Okay.
The least I can say about that, the better for both of us. But the lesson here is the way not to treat an employee, not to treat a senior employee. You know, with all of the things, the rationale. Could you imagine my surprise? I left office on the Friday, very all right, and so on. Saturday night, I'm by the Dennery Fish Fiesta at 20 to 10 in the evening when some corporal came down with the Governor General's car and handed me a letter. I mean, it's, from the Governor General. All right, we'll open it and say that it's a one-sentence thing, one sentence. That, in accordance with so-and-so, I so-and-so, Dubai, transfer you from this to that, effective 27th of May, which was 3 days ago. So Saturday night, I'm getting a letter saying that I was transferred on Thursday, and then the Prime Minister spoke about that. It is a hard thing to take. And I took it, perhaps if I was a single person with no kids, I think my kids took it harder than me. My parents, my siblings, because it caused people to cast a lot of aspersions about you as to why. And your children, you know, the emotional strain that it takes on people. And when you say that you're suffering with stress as a result of that, people still figure out that, you know, but I can say, man, you know? It's not that I'm a bus driver, you fire me from one bus and I can jump on another bus and go and continue my livelihood as another bus driver in another bus, be it a more comfortable bus, you know. You understand? It's about career, a career that took me, you know, almost 30 years to develop. Now, if I had done something that you could say deserved that kind of response, fair enough. If, you know, but, and the excuse that was, not an excuse, I'm sorry. The reason that was given was that because of my expertise in matters operational, regional security matters, international thing, and you know, and because I am such an expert in these matters, you know, I needed to be closer to the decision makers so that my expertise would be fully realized. I must say, to his credit, the former Prime Minister King never once said anything negative about, save for the fact that he said that he had lost
confidence in your leadership.
In my leadership.
I remember that.
I mean, I am sure that is a statement he has heard concerning other people since then, but that's not for it. But I'll tell you what, I went through my emotional trauma, the whole emotional roller coaster. But thank God I'm out on the other side. One of the greatest lessons I learned in all of this is the power of forgiveness. Where you forgive people, not for them, but for you, you have to let out all of the bitterness and whatever it is. And now, you know, it's a good while now, hey, you know, I'm over that. As a matter of fact, it turned out a lot better than the people who scripted it. In that, I got promoted to grade 21, I retired very comfortably at grade 21. If I had written the script myself, I would not have penned it as well as it ended. So I have absolutely no reason to think. But as I said when I took up the new post, I am a police officer at heart. I will always be at heart, and I will do everything to advance and promote the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. You know, I would use that term, although the last person who used it got some blows and people misunderstood it. I have a vested interest in seeing the police force succeed. Its successes are my successes. Its failures are my failures. I am part and parcel of what is happening now, what is happening then, and, you know, because I have been part of this organization for the last 30 years. Now, when I say I'm part of what's happening now, I'm not saying that directly, but, you know...
so that you would always be identified and recognized as a police officer and a former commissioner.
So I will not do anything to anyway derail or anything that will promote the force. And not a single police officer can say since I left that I have in any way discouraged them. As a matter of fact, I have always supported them. I have always encouraged them to do more. And let me say on record that I will always support the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. I will always support the Commissioner of Police. I'm not talking about supporting Vernon Fassois or anybody. I'm talking about the Commissioner of the office. Because I feel when the office is disrespected, the whole organization is disrespected. So that is my two cents on this. I will, for reasons, we don't really need, I don't think it will do the country any good or do the force any good for me to come here and say this person, that person. That is back then. We need to look forward. We intend to live the rest of our life in the future, and that's what I want to focus on. What is happening now? Yes, we need to look at the perspectives as to what are some of the reasons why it's happening, but more importantly, what can we do moving forward, given what we have?
Indeed. Indeed. We're due for our first commercial break. When we come back, we will have a discussion with my guest about the very same issues, or his last statement, where we are right now, what led to where we are right now, and what we can do to ensure that we have a stronger RSLPF. Please stay in touch. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to In Touch. I'm your host, Jadia Japé-Emmanuel. My guest tonight is former Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ausbert Regis, and we are speaking to issues related to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. We are hoping that later on in the program we'll get an opportunity to look at the recently released crime statistics. We saw some very good news on the surface that we have recorded a modest decline in crime, something that I believe every St. Lucian wants to hear at this time. But before we go into the statistics, former Commissioner Regis, you spoke very emotionally about how you feel about the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, the fact that you were bonded for life and you have an interest in ensuring that the organization succeeds. It must have pained you greatly to witness, albeit from the outside, what has happened, a lot of the public discussion, and events that would have led the U.S. to suspend aid to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. What was that period like for you?
First of all, I think that the police went through a very difficult period. When you change the leadership and new people are put in, sometimes you're not given a chance to stand on your feet before you are bashed. So you have not put down sufficient roots, so you're not as sturdy. And the new administration dealing with a commissioner who is 4 years in the post, and a new commissioner just put in the post in an administration that is 4 years old, it's different. And perhaps, I don't know if there was pressure to perform, because we had, in 2010, we had an unusual amount of homicide, gang-related activities. Now, the records will show that 2001, 2000, we saw kind of elevated crime levels. We also saw it in 2006. We saw it in 2010. Around the year before election or election year always seemed to present a challenge, both in terms of homicides and elevated levels of crime. So that one was not unusual insofar as that is concerned. But I believe that certain things were done, and my problem is I know what I would do and what I would not do, but that's me. Yeah? I did not get to that point just because I am better than anybody else. And let me say for the younger ones, I was the officer in charge of SSU in 1993 during the banana saga. So I had gone through a kind of series of unfortunate events around that time, which led to the loss of life and so on. So perhaps I may have been a little more sensitized to taking a particular course of action. Whatever it was, something was done that the police now have to pay for, are being held accountable for. Was it strictly an operational, was it an operational strategy that, that sort of emanated from the minds of the police command, or did it come from the policymakers? Whatever it is, wherever it came from, it has resulted in where we are at. Now, I don't want to go into the merits or otherwise of that operation. Some people think it was necessary. Some people think it was effective. Some people think that it was what we needed to do. However, we need to look at, even if whatever the rationale was, this is what we are faced with now. Now, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with the fallout? It is not just about what you do, it's how you do it. Now, perhaps it was done with all good intention. I don't know. I'm not here to speak on behalf of anybody. But we have a situation right now, a bad situation with loss of support from the US and so on, and things of that sort. I am more interested in, no, I shouldn't say I'm more interested. I'm interested in how are we going to resolve this for the sake of the country? How are we going to resolve this? How are we going to move forward so that the force can grow and be the kind of force that we want? A lot of officers have suffered. A lot of officers continue to suffer. Lack of training opportunities, lack of a lot of different things. What is it that we need to do now to ensure that we move forward in a better way? Now, there's this Jamaica report. I'm not privy to it or what it says, so I can't comment as to what it. But what I believe is this presents the police force and the powers that be with an opportunity for positive reform. It presents opportunities that hitherto may not have been considered. It should provide us with a platform for a more professional police force. And that is my interest. How do we move the force from the undesirable state that we find ourselves in, I would say we, to the desired state where we all can be proud of what we have. Okay? Now,
there are those who say, Mr. Regis, that when we refer to that period leading up to now, no matter how bad the human rights people say it is, no matter how bad the US says it is, we have consistently registered declines in our homicide rate. So, for example, from the report released by the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, we see that 2012, we moved from 54 to 44 homicides. 2013, we go to 34. 2014, 36 in 2013, sorry, and 2014, 34. And there are persons who are saying St. Lucia is now safer as a result of that operation. Had it not been for that operation, we would not be registering such declines. So what exactly is the problem?
But we're not talking about St. Lucia only. We're talking about the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Now, it is almost understandable that if you have prolific offenders out of the equation, that you will see a reduction in the offenses that they were responsible for. Yeah? However, does that give legitimacy to the organization? There are issues as to the methodology. Is it means to an end, or does the end justify the means, or are we to go along as we ought to, according to the rule of law. Now, I'm not saying the rule of law was not monitored. There are several issues there. So we can't say St. Lucia is safer because you have less guys of these prolific criminals, because not criminals, offenders.
Okay.
There are some who say that the current gang wars are replacement wars, where young Turks are now trying to take over the territory which perhaps was occupied by those you cut off. And so there are lots of things to speculate on. But be it as you may think, that yes, that provided us some relief, but it provided us with a lot of grief that we have to deal with now. And how do we deal with it? Now, I've heard persons say, well, the US has more issues than us, why should they not? Why should they ask us to think?
Yes.
The point is, if we do not deal with our issues, other persons will get involved. You understand? We are not doing this. What has the US done, essentially? They have said that, according to the law, if they perceive you having done this, they will do that. All they have done is to withdraw their support. They have withdrawn their support. They have withdrawn their support for us. And it shows how dependent we were on them. So, that also is an issue we need to look at. If there is another issue 15 years down the road, are we still going to have the same level of dependency on them, having learned, hopefully, from this? So I'm saying that there is a problem, be it one of perception, be it one that is deeper, that we need to deal with. And we can behave like the proverbial ostrich and pretend that it does not exist, but it exists. And we need to deal with it. All of us need to deal with it. The government, the members of the force, and the public that they serve. We need to deal with it.
When we analyze the information that the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has released in terms of the figures and the statistics, and how we have been able to, through a very challenging period, for example, we receive information from the RSLPF that says that our detection rate has increased. We look at drops in homicides, when we look at firearm recovery and all of that, we are seeing some positive trends in that we are trending downwards, albeit modestly. This has caused some individuals to see, well, we can survive without the US. The US has cut off aid. Visas have been revoked. We no longer get support in terms of training for our officers and Coast Guards. And we did okay. Not well enough, because we would have preferred if there was a further reduction. I think every single St. Lucian, including the Commissioner of Police himself and every single member of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, would want to report better statistics in terms of homicides and crimes against property and so on. But many persons are saying, in this difficult period, we did this. So in other words, we don't need the US. From your experience, can it get worse than it already is if nothing is done?
Of course it will get worse. Two things here. The successes that the force has shown has to be attributed to the initiatives, both long-term, that has brought about results, because tremendous investments have been made in the Royal St. Lucia Police Force over the last 10-something years. New police stations, new systems, new things, training initiatives, recruitment, equipment, a number of initiatives, right? We have seen officers receiving training in other areas, you know, that would have put them at the level that they're at. I think what we need to look at, too many times we look at events and not processes, that over a period of time, because of the training programs that we have embarked on, that you would see the results, not necessarily over a 1, 2, 3 year period, but over sometimes a 4, 5, 10 year period. Now you say that you're having successes without support. Of course we can exist without, you know, but the point is, because of the level of dependency that we have, now there are gaps in training, gaps in skills development, and a number of things, especially when it comes to the more technical aspects in our Coast Guard and so on. We can survive that. But if these skills are not replenished, when we have attrition, when we have upward mobility, that is where it is really going to hurt us. Not just yet we can survive it, no, you know. But if we do not get alternatives or we resolve it, it is going to hurt us in the next 3, 4, 5 years, because all of your engineers would have been gone and you do not have replacement engineers. All of your more technical people, yeah, in the areas of intelligence and so on. Because these skills are not skills where you can send somebody to Monroe to learn them, or to Leicester University, or to wherever. These skills are from state agencies that you must be part of the system to enter there. And when you lose out on those skills, the leadership of the force is very young, because not so young people like myself are gone. So how do you replenish those skills? It's deeper than just the day-to-day. We are thinking short-term now.
Statistics, the crime statistics.
And the crime stats you have to look at it within context. For example, we have a reduction in the rape and so on for last year. But remember the previous year, that was 2013, there was a problem with a number of rape incidents reportedly by 1 or 2 individuals. These people were arrested, taken off the grid. So you would find that reduction. Now that is as a result of that initiative. You would find that persons were arrested, so you would find a reduction in this. If you have an increase in the number of firearms that were recovered,
yes,
then you would have a reduction in the number of firearm-related offenses. You understand? So it is, you know, if you have a reduction in the number of cases, rape cases reported, it does not mean necessarily that you have a reduction in rape. It may mean that persons do not have the confidence to report it. You understand? And even when you have a decrease in the number of crimes that are reported, it may be a low confidence factor. When you have an increase in the number of crimes reported, it does not mean that prior to that there was less crime. It means that perhaps people are bothering to report incidents because of the level of confidence that they have. So there are a number of reasons why you would find an upward, downward trend. The police force and members of the force need to be commended for the areas where the successes have been recorded.
Yes.
More importantly, we need to concentrate on the areas, the challenging areas, for example, property crime, burglaries, which continue to be a problem.
And the detection rate dropped compared to the previous year.
What initiatives need to be put in place to ensure that we can deal with the burglaries? I know that since the acquisition of the AFIS, which is the automated fingerprint system, that needs to be populated. You know, it's that you need to put in more records in there, and the more you populate it, the greater the chances, likelihood of making a match. With initiatives like this, and the commissioner has mentioned the public awareness campaign that they're on, and they intend to continue.
Yes.
You know, and the development, encouraging the development of things like the neighborhood watch and other schemes where people can start, you know, taking a greater responsibility for their security. You will see a reduction, hopefully, in that sort of thing. There are other areas where there are, where you have the robberies and
stealing from a person, yes, because we moved from 332 reported cases in 2013 to 686.
So what needs to happen there? What are the initiatives? What initiatives are the police going to put
but there
to
must
deal with
be
this?
greater collaboration between the police and the public on a number of these issues if we are to see greater successes in these areas.
You must always remember that the public are your clients, and sometimes I think that is lost on police officers. They don't see persons as clients, and I think one of the things that need to improve. It was a problem when I was there. It was a problem before I was there. It's a problem now that I'm no longer there. Is customer service. You know, customer service. How that mindset, so that, you know, people could feel that when you walk in there, having been victimized, been a victim of whatever crime, that you're not being further victimized by the attitude of the police towards what you've reported. So it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag.
And clearly it is not as simple as reading.
No, it's not just simple as reading that you have this here and this is down, this is up. Some things affect other things. Yeah? And you would find an increase in crime, reported crime, could also mean an increase in police operations. Because some crimes are generated, some offenses are generated by the police. Drug-related offenses are generated by police operations. You know, searches and other things of that sort. So you would find that...
But I think I saw a reduction in drug seizures.
Well, reduction in drug seizures by quantities may not necessarily mean a reduction in drug operations. So you may, for example, have 10 operations, total quantity of drugs seized would be, say, 20 kilos. You may have 2 operations where it's 100 kilos per thing. So when you are putting your stats together, you know, it is not necessarily a reflection of the operation, the amount, yeah, in terms of the overall quantities. So there are a number of things. I mean, as I said, I'm not here to spin nothing. It is what it is. Yes. And sometimes we need to take a hard look at what we have, because problem identification is the first step in problem solving. If we identify these are the areas of success, bravo, let's do more in that group. These are the areas that we need to improve on. How do we improve on them? What are the steps that need to be taken by the force, by the powers that be, by the public to address this situation?
What is your main area of concern? When analyzing the statistics presented, what is your main area of concern?
It is crimes against persons. Crimes against persons, the burglary, the robbery, the stealing. Now, that does not mean that I am trying to, in any way, say that the burglaries are not important. Now, let me try to explain, because I have said, persons say that this establishment has been robbed, and this person has been... You burglarize property and you rob persons. Okay. Okay? So when we talk about robbery, we're talking about persons. We are a tourist destination. And crimes against our visitors, crimes against persons, both locals and visitors, have a very, very negative impact on not on just on our quality of life, but on our economy. So we need to ensure, for example, that we can see maritime security, for example, with the development of the yachting sector, which is so lucrative. We need to improve on the maritime security. And it has several effects. If we deal with maritime security, we're also dealing with our borders, our porous borders. That is one layer of security, that a lot of things may never get to our shores. We need to look at the beaches, for example. Should we start an initiative to say, we're starting off with one safe beach, Rodney Bay Beach. We're going to make it safe, 24 hours, and do what we need to do, put in different initiatives, whatever we need to make that. And then we could say, we could declare we have 2 safe beaches. Now, somebody might be sitting here and saying, okay, yeah, Regis, when you were there, why didn't you do it? But that is the value of experience. Hindsight, experience, and when you are in the middle of something, sometimes you do not have enough time to even see what's in your own face because you are involved in it. So what I'm giving here is, you know, having looked at my training, my experience, my own deficiencies, my own, you know, lessons learned, this is where I'm at. Now, I needed to put that before somebody say, yeah, now you could say. But coming back to the point, you know, start off these initiatives. We need to make our streets safer. So I'd say offenses against persons, starting off with murder and robberies, the stealings, both for improvement of quality of life, reduction in fear of crime, and also protecting our economy.
And when you analyze the statistics, which area do you believe that the police would, you would commend the police greatly for in terms of improvements, or where you see that there's an effort leading to something very positive?
Well, in the crimes against persons, some aspects of it, they've done very well there. The serious crimes, for that matter, there have been a reduction in serious crimes overall when you categorize them as things. Where you have seen an increase is in the summary matters. We have seen an increase there. Now, what are summary matters for the layperson? Summary matters are matters that would end up before a magistrate. Serious crimes would be the ones that would end up before a judge. Yeah, indictable, what we call indictable offenses and so on. So we've seen, much improvement in the more serious offenses. However, the smaller, the less troublesome ones, but there's still quality of life issues we need to look at that.
Yes.
And some of those things require a non-law enforcement approach. Let's see, for example, a lot of the problem, the assaults and other things that we have, is as a result of conflict resolution. One very interesting perspective and something I suggested to some persons some time ago, I wasn't taking on that, but I'll still say it again. Let us analyze all of those homicides where persons, domestic homicides, where a friend killed somebody over a drink, a pair of sneakers, a bad joke, a dog, or whatever. Let us analyze all of those things. And let us use them in our conflict resolution initiative to say, okay, for every scenario, what is the teaching point here? Use community theater, use the check-up pressures and the others, And when you get to that point, stop and say, okay, instead of taking the way that took somebody's life, what could have been done? You know, what are some of the lessons that we learned from that? And how can we resolve this in a manner that does not affect, take somebody's life or put persons in harm's way? These are things that we have to do. These are not law enforcement things.
Yes.
This is more about character and ethics.
And our whole socialization, how we relate to each other. And of course, the family, the schools, every layer of community, the churches and so on would have to play a role right there.
Play a role in this, yeah.
Sure.
So sometimes a lot of those things you need, you know, the police plus. Now, another area, for example, in the homicides last year, there were 3 homicides, I think, relating to police shooting of mentally disturbed persons.
Yes.
These are 2 or 3 homicides too many. In 2015, the police should not have to resort to fatally shooting mental persons.
Well, some are saying they have no choice because they do not have the skills or the level of training that is required to deal with these individuals. And I want to go into that with you.
Right.
Yes, we'll go to a commercial break, and when we come back, I want to go into that discussion because I have been hearing that processes started and somewhere along the way, you know, we aborted them, and this is why we are back to where we are right now. So we'll have this discussion right after the commercial break. Please stay in touch. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thank you for staying in touch. We'll be taking your phone calls later on in the program. But Mr. Regis, just before we went to break, we were touching on this issue, and it really says a lot. And it has affected in a large way the police and public relationship. It is almost certain once you have a confrontation, and I say confrontation because there are hundreds of cases where the police would move into communities to, you know, deal with situations involving mentally ill patients, and it would not result in a fatal shooting. But it seems as if where there is confrontation, there seems to be some difficulty in managing the situation. Many persons have said you have this situation because we do not have any other means of subduing individuals. Some would say even though you had tasers, for example, there would still be that kind of response because the police are not trained to handle mentally ill individuals. I am sure this is not a new issue.
As a matter of fact, when I joined the police force in the early 80s, it was an issue. It was an issue before I joined the police force. And it is one of those areas of real frustration that I never thought that in 2015 we would be at the point where we are, which is really nowhere insofar as moving that situation forward. Training the police officers in dealing with mentally challenged persons is not a set of skills that reside within the police force where we can use trainers internally to train police officers. So we require the subject matter experts to provide training for the police in this regard. We are trained to deal with criminally minded persons. So when you are dealing with a mentally challenged person and that person behaves in a what we consider threatening manner, one is almost instantly recognizing the behavior as criminal rather than
someone who's ill
because of the lack of training. Now, let me just say that many years ago, let me use a different situation. Domestic violence. Many years ago, police officers were accused of showing insensitivity towards victims of domestic violence. I remember some horror stories when I was a constable, when people came, women came to the station to make a report that they had been beaten by their spouse, and those persons say, hey, wash it, man, wash it, kiss off and things that, you know, very insensitive things. You know what changed it around? It was a training initiative, sustained training initiatives at the training school, training interventions for all officers. CAFRA was involved in this, and UNICEF, and is it the one, Uniform? The one, the United Nations organization dealing with women.
Okay.
We had that period of training.
What are we waiting for to get moving
to get it around?
On this one?
We need the, okay, hey, let me tell you what happened in the past and what. When Dr. Stephen King was the CMO, I was commissioner, there was an initiative, a community psychiatric strategy that was being developed, where we would have a multi-sectorial approach, where the police, the community in terms of the relatives, and the community, the primary health givers, would come together and because the relatives themselves are more scared of this mad person than you know.
Well, I would assume this is why they call the
and
police, because they cannot handle them.
They too need to be informed.
Yes.
They need to be trained and sensitized as to this is, you know.
Yes.
Everything was going on great. We said that, you know, there would be the involvement of community psychiatric nurses and so on. Because we had that in the past. When I was a constable, we had, you know, two psychiatric community nurses, one in the north, one in the south. We're talking about 30 years ago. We had Urban Lesmo in the north, I think, and one nurse Lamy in the south. They had their little black books with the names of all outpatients and what medication they're on and so on. And anytime we got one of these issues, we used to call them. There were no cell phones, no nothing. We used to get in touch with them. They used to come along, and in most times, when they see the nurses, hey, nurse, we met more, and it was problem solved. We were trying to put this thing together. There was a change of administration, and the new Minister of Health felt otherwise. Okay, and that was that. I remember that during my time, recognizing that problem with fatal police shootings, we introduced the use of bin bags. That is a shotgun round used in your 12-gauge shotgun, but you would substitute the metal balls with some hard bins, as they call them, bin bags. So you would shoot somebody with that. It can be fatal if you hit the person in a very sensitive area, but by and large, it will just feel like you got a good punch. Yeah? And we issued that to the stations with instructions for use. We also were pursuing the tasers. We went Taser International, got a representative down here, Anthony Bristol. He went to the UK, did the training. Monies for the tasers was in fact a line item in capital, in the estimates of expenditures. Capital, I think it was 0910 or 0809. But during the financial year, having done all of this and all of the training, all the proprietary work, the ministry felt that the money was needed, and so they took it. Yeah? And we are where we are today, which leaves the poor police officer with the very unenviable situation of having to deal with the situation that he ought not to be facing at this time. And that is a matter that we should address post-haste, because it is an unnecessary loss of life.
Yes, and it's causing a lot of strain and contention.
There's hardly one family without somebody with some sort of mental illness. You know.
I have an uncle who's mentally ill, so
we all do. So we should be. Now, here's what really frustrates me. You see, we had the last one there. Everybody rumble, 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 rumble. 3 months down the road is quiet until the other one again. Yeah. You know. But these are some of the things we need to address and address immediately. Yeah. So I'm very passionate about that, and I'm very frustrated that we didn't get that going, which speaks to another issue of use of force by the police. And we had been working on a use of force policy for the Royal Central Police Force. It had gone through all of its stages already. The Attorney General's office had approved it, and it was waiting implementation when I was thrown in the Briar's patch, and we had a change of Attorney General, and that was that. You know? But these are things that I would like to see implemented.
I must pick your brain on a matter that has become very public, and it is an issue where the Welfare Association of the Royal Central Police Force is challenging the current guidelines or policy. I'm not too sure if it is a policy, but a methodology for promotions within the Royal Central Police Force. And in the discussion, I am hearing from one side of the debate, and they may be wrong, it may be said to advance their own position, but they are saying that the way promotions are now determined within the Royal Central Police Force is not the way it was done a few years ago. That in fact the process has been changed, has been tweaked, and you no longer have a process that the Welfare Association considers to be fair to all members of the Royal Central Police Force. What obtains now, I'm not too sure if you are aware, is it what obtained back then, and do you see any merit in the case being put forward by the Welfare Association?
You know, it's a very interesting thing, this, and it shows that when organizations like the Police Welfare Association, the CSA and other organizations, when there is this inconsistency in pursuing certain policies regarding membership. In 2006, in recognition of that problem of subjectivity in promotions, a police promotions regulations was developed. The Welfare Association at the time had full involvement in the thing. Then Minister Calix George was pushing it. We wanted to insulate the commissioner, the politician from it, and we wanted to ensure that there was very little interference, not involvement, interference in the process. So, and people would be held accountable. So there is a transparent process. When the administration changed, the first thing that happened was where I was directed to promote persons given a list. Now, I can say this because the person involved admitted on television, yes, he gave the commissioner a list of persons.
I probably missed that admission. The list was given to you by whom?
Yes, by the then Minister of National Security. Oh. You understand? And said, well, promote these people. And I said, hell no. Now, I don't know if that is what contributed to me being sent on, on leave, but I refused to do that because it was wrong in principle and it would set a very bad precedent. So I was asked to promote a list of persons based on, I don't know. That is not the way to go. I said, hell no, I'm not doing that. I found myself being sent on leave, long leave. John Broughton was put acting commissioner, and promotions were held based upon whatever other considerations other than the guidelines. One person sued the commissioner, saying that the guidelines were not observed. By the time the case went to court, John Broughton was gone and I was back in office as Commissioner of Police. Now, they did not sue John Broughton. They sued the commissioner. The Attorney General now required an affidavit from the Commissioner of Police to support government's case against the lawsuit. So you understand my predicament.
So you're now being asked to support something you oppose.
Something that I said was wrong, I can't say I was victimized for it. It was coincidental that I was sent on leave around that time. Promotions were done, whatever way, form or shape. And now I have to go and defend it. Well, the little that you know about me, you know if it ain't right, I ain't doing it. So I said, I can't do it. So I suspect government to find a way out of the thing, repealed the regulations.
That would have been the same government then?
Yes, as a means of out-of-court settlement to promote the person who had sued them.
Right and a wrong.
So it became open. In 2013, this current administration decided to approve guidelines for promotion. From my understanding, the Welfare Association was given this here. They said nothing. Either they didn't look at it or whatever it is. 1.5 years later, or 1 year later, promotions are about to kick off. Now they have an issue with it. It is amazing the road that we take to take us nowhere. And the very thing that we wanted to get rid of, accusations of subjectivity and interference and involvement, and we are back to it. Look at where we started and look at where we are at. Now I think the issue, one of the main issues, is about the length of time that if you're promoted now and you have a degree, you have to wait. I think the original thing was 2 years, now it's 3 years or whatever. But quite obviously there is a problem. And my feeling, my advice is, my unsolicited advice is, that if it is a problem, perhaps it should be reviewed. Because at the end of the day, you do not want, with everything else that is going externally in the force, you do not want the one area that really motivates somebody, that is promotion, that for members to feel disadvantaged. Yeah? So, you see what has happened to this Welfare Association? They brought it upon themselves to a certain extent. Because when the regulation was being repealed, they did not say boo. Because some people felt it was good to have a very fluid system. Perhaps they would have benefited from it. Perhaps they did. I don't know.
One can only wonder. We'll put our telephone number on the screen so we can begin to take your calls. But just as we await your calls, there is one matter I think that I would like to get your views on again. And that is the issue of discipline within the Royal Senatorial Police Force. Many persons, I note that it happens most times when we are angry, or if something does not go our way, we hear people accusing, police officers of being corrupt. Sometimes we do not accuse individuals. It is a label that is placed on the entire force, and I am sure it is something that can affect their performance. It affects the confidence of the public. The Commissioner of Police has stated in very clear terms that this is a matter that he takes very seriously. In fact, I believe almost every public statement the Commissioner of Police makes, he reiterates that he will do everything in his power to stamp out corruption and to deal with the indiscipline in the force. I'm sure this is a challenge that you face too as Commissioner of Police. Corruption,
accusations of corruption are as old as the police force. However, what we appear to do, how we handle it, can make a difference. I stand corrected. Perhaps you're meeting the Commissioner next tomorrow.
In fact, yes, I meet him tomorrow.
But to me, subject to correction, not many officers have been dismissed for disciplinary offenses since I left. Now, officers have been dismissed for criminal matters, but in the orderly room process, they have been fined and they've been fined and they'll be fined.
Yes, I believe over 20.
Sometimes there's an old cliche, sometimes you need to shoot a hostage for persons to realize you are serious. Some persons, from what I've heard, some persons who were fined ought to have been sent home. Now, maybe
Who has the power to dismiss within the police force?
Commissioner.
Oh.
Yes. Under our Constitution, the Commissioner has direct authority over persons between constable and inspector to hire, to promote, and to dismiss. So it's within him. You know, perhaps, you know, the thing is, all right, well, maybe it's hard economic times, we don't want to lose staff and so on, so find them. But I was not averse to sending them home justified. So, you know, I will reward you, but I would also, you know, there are some persons who you need to, in order to motivate other people, you need to get them off the system. And if it means that you have to dismiss persons, especially repeat offenders, you know, you do that.
So you basically saying that there is more that can be done in that area to ensure that we send the right message.
Yes, we send the right message. And not only that too, the ordering process is long. It's like magistrate's court where an adjudicator has to sit down and write everything verbatim. Officers do not like to do that. I was a gazetted officer, I didn't like to do it. But here's an initiative that that started during my period. We are saying that for administrative matters, late for duty, absent from duty, things of that sort, administrative matters, we submitted a proposal to Cabinet to appoint perhaps retired senior officers, and perhaps not just senior officers, but retired, like permanent secretaries, people who have dealt with administrative law, as adjudicators. So you tie up, you release your officers, and these are designated people dealing with this here. Cabinet, there's a cabinet conclusion to the extent and so on. So it said, yes, we will have those persons, and they would be dealing with that to speed up the process. Because the thing with discipline, it's like, if it is not administered between now and just now, it's like somebody touching a hot kettle. And half of the time it might burn you, but even when it burns you, you will feel it 6 months down the road. So, you know, it's not a problem touching the hot kettle. When all was done, when we were about to get to the point to look at persons to be selected as adjudicators, there was a certain amount of external influence, which I was not happy with.
That seemed to be very common in that era. A lot of the things that we have spoken about, you know, policy on promotions, now we're dealing with discipline within the force, we're speaking about external influences.
Well, you see, there's a difference. There will always be, there's a difference between political involvement and political interference. There should always be political involvement, because policy.
Right.
Yeah? But sometimes what you find too far east is west. And that's where we get in problems.
So directive to do this and to do that. We'll go to the phone lines. Good night, your first caller.
Hi, good evening, Jadia. Good evening, Mr. Regis.
Good evening to you.
Mr. Regis, two things for you. I would like to know why in 2015 we don't have means of charging persons for overspeeding and also drinking under the influence. As you know, if somebody is involved in a vehicular accident and they are taken to Victoria Hospital, by the time they are attended to by the doctor, they might be sober at that point. So why can't we charge for drinking under the influence? Sorry, driving under the influence. And another thing, in terms of the promotions in the force, there are persons who joined the force because they had a genuine interest in policing. Some persons may have joined because they just wanted a job. Now, some persons also know that if they go and develop themselves, study, they will get a promotion. So there are persons who do that. And then you disadvantage persons who have a genuine interest in policing, although we need to strike a balance. But I think that can be a discouraging factor for the persons who are really into policing. Yeah, I just need to comment on that, and also the driving under the influence and speeding.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let me deal with the first one, the last one first. Yes, there are persons with a genuine interest, but we have minimum standards. We need to have standards. I've always said that we should not be recruiting police officers, constables. We should be recruiting future commissioners, persons who have the ability to rise to the senior level. Because if somebody, because of the interest, cannot go past corporal, then you will be doing himself and the organization a disservice. So yes, you have the interest. Unfortunately, we do not have the kind of CT scan to scan somebody to see if he is genuinely interested or not, but behavior and all of that. But I take the point. The second point about the thing, this is a point of frustration, and it's something that I'm frustrated with, and have been frustrated with it for the last 10 years or more. We have the legislation in place. All that is required for us to have the speeding thing is for us to acquire the appropriate radar guns. Now, we had the microwave type guns many years ago, but with the installation of overhead electricity lines, it interfered with the process and so on, and we need to move to the more direct laser beams. Now, these things are a little expensive, and first, Bureau Standard needs to improve it. We have made repeated proposals, actually telling the powers that be that, look, we can pay for the equipment that you'll give us within 3 months from traffic fines. Yeah? And that is a business proposal. It has nothing to do with safety. But it is going to bring about safety and so on. So we are just still waiting for the right equipment to get that. Relating to the drinking and driving, the law is there. All that it requires is for the minister responsible for transport to make the to
make it
gazette
effective?
it, yes,
So,
what equipment is to be used and so on. Now, we've had ministers in the past who figure out that is it. I really thought that under the last administration, when we had the minister responsible for the police and the minister responsible for transport, both of them are not known to be drinking men. I would get more support in the implementation of this here. I know that there are concerns about abuse, about this and all that. Trinidad is having those challenges, but we need to go that way.
Measurement.
I know I've had discussions with some politicians who say, well, you know, boy, the nature of our politics and campaign and that sort of thing, you know, is going to... We need to get over that. Rallies will not be affected because you bus people there. You pay bus drivers to bus people there. So
but that should be the least of the concerns. The safety of the public should be the greater factor.
You'll be surprised. The thing there is we need to do it because a lot of the fatalities that we have, it's as a result of drink. Even some of the crimes that we have is as a result of persons with operating vehicles moving from point A to point B under the influence of drink or drug. So that is something we do. If we just get that doing, and it is not a legislative requirement, it is an administrative requirement for the minister responsibility for transport to just okay it and pay for the breathalyzers. We had already conducted training. Well, right now we need to go all the way back.
Refreshers.
To, not refreshers, because the Bureau Standard has to be involved. We need to train persons so that the courts will be satisfied that they are competent to handle the equipment.
Let me just clarify something. The breathalyzers, at the time that you were commissioner, and you know, we spoke about the training and so on, the Royal Senator Police Force had the breathalyzers and were not able to use it, or were you...
In anticipation, you know, perhaps in anticipation of implementation, we started doing the thing. We got some people trained and certified. We conducted some trainer-trainer programs so that and so on. And all we're waiting for is that administrative directive to say, this is what is going to do, this is the equipment we'll be using, etc., and so on, or whatever, to get the ball rolling.
And the equipment was already on island?
Some of it was there. Oh. We did not, it was going to be a pilot project because the way that we had recommended is that we would not be doing wholesale enforcement one time because we need it's a cultural change. Because a lot of people don't appreciate that, you know, drinking free beers and a shot of wine, a glass of wine and a shot of thing, you know, what the alcohol, blood alcohol levels would be. So we would be, first and foremost, doing it so that we can sensitize people and say, look, you are over the reading, you know, so and so is the case. So persons will help modify their behavior and change. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to, the aim is not to prosecute people. The aim is to get people to change their behavior towards that. So it would involve public awareness, the whole public campaign, and you know, so that you get people into it.
We go to the phone lines. Good night. We've lost that call. 452-7347 is the number to dial if you have any questions or you want to add your voice to the discussion that we are now having. Again, 452-7347 is the number to dial. Again, we have a call. Good night. Thank you for calling.
Good night.
Good night.
Mr. Regis.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I listened to you. Look like you have a very good idea.
Could you speak a little louder, please?
I said I'm listening to the program, and I've listened to you. I mean, you speak a lot. It's a long time. You have been outlining some of your expertise. But, Mr. Regis, in your days, because I think Jada asked you a question, and he said the Commissioner of Police have the right to dismiss or to fire somebody, especially police officers that did not conduct themselves well. Had you ever fired anybody in your day?
I think I had the dubious...
Or have you ever fined any...
Yes, let me answer that. I think I have the dubious distinction of being a commissioner, perhaps, who fire the most people. But, you know, a lot of things that you're not aware, it's not because you're not aware of it, it has not happened, you know.
Do you have another question, caller?
Because what I'm saying...
But I'm telling you, you asked me if yes, I've fired a lot of people.
Yeah, Mr. Regis. You said you have...
And may I add, not one disciplinary decision, not one decision that I took was successfully appealed by anybody. And some of the decisions I took were challenged in court. One of them was challenged all the way to the Court of Appeal. And I never lost one because I tried to do it fairly and impartially.
Mr. Regis, as a young man growing up, incident from the police force, in fact, starting in the 80s, these were not strange. I mean, starting from long before we had incident where police shooting unarmed persons and sometimes lie and say they had a knife. I could recall a particular incident that happened in my community when the police, and you were commissioner of police at that time, when a police officer unlawfully used his firearm against somebody that was running. And then that smoothly, there was a little protest, and then all of a sudden that case went and nothing happened. Now, I am not blaming you, maybe for that incident, but my question, those incidents, even up to a day, even as we speak, we have this very same thing happen. So then, listen to you there tonight. It shows me that, I mean, you had good intention, for sure, I would see. But the fact of the matter, it looked like the police force are so plagued in with politics. And that is the problem a lot of us want to touch, you know.
Oh, sorry, we've lost that call. Sorry, I wish you can call back to continue your contribution. But he is making a point that I believe a lot of our viewers are saying, that we seem to be facing the very same problems. Good night. Thank you for staying in touch.
A very pleasant good evening to you, Mrs. Emmanuel and Mr.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a question for Mr. Regis.
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Regis, during your term as commissioner, I know you had a keen interest in ISPS.
In?
ISPS.
Yes, ISPS, yes.
It is a fact that this was a U.S. initiative.
Yeah.
The Royal St. Lucia Police Force, the designated authority for this protocol.
Yes, yes.
Today, there is no communication and conversation with the police with respect to training, etc., by the U.S.
Yes.
What do you suggest is the way forward in light of this regime with regard to the U.S. and St. Lucia?
Okay.
Thank you so much for your question.
I think that
Just for the benefit of those who do not know, what is that program that he's speaking about?
Okay, it's the International Port Ship Security thing.
Yes.
Where we had designated authority, and it's something that it's a sort of anti-terrorism thing where with ports and ship security thing. And at one time we had a very aggressive program going. I can't speak as to what obtains now because I've been out effectively from 2010. But it is a very important thing. If it is de-emphasized, I think it's one of the areas we need to look at, because in today's world with so many terrorist acts happening, and I spoke about maritime security. Yes. This is all part of strengthening maritime security, yeah? Because, we had a fire in one cruise ship there. That was an accident. God forbid if it was something deliberate. And right away, the international community would be looking at what are our systems, what systems we have in place, and things of that sort. And if we are found wanting, we may not see a cruise ship berthing here for a while. So I don't know what the status is, but the caller is right. We had a very aggressive program. And it is something that we should not let slip.
I can well imagine, given the current situation of the U.S., that it would have been one of the programs that would have been interrupted. Good night. Thank you for calling. Hi, good evening. We can barely hear you, caller.
Yes, Mr. Regis, a question.
Wow, I can't.
Sure. Can you speak a little louder, please?
Yes, Mr. Regis, a question for you. Yeah, I was just saying I realized the police force is full of...
I can barely hear you.
I see. I can hear you better. Yes. You could go ahead.
I know the police force is full of special constables, they call them, yes.
Special constables.
Special constables, yes.
Yeah. And most of those people, I don't think that I think there is a requirement, as you indicated, to join the force. And those guys, I don't think there's any promotion or anything like that for them. To me, though, it's really a waste, in my view, to have those guys, and you could go forward with them.
Yes, but you need to understand the premise in which you came in. The special constable is, as a matter of fact, we actually developed a special constable regime as to deal with some of the shortages that we experienced. And I think, it went kind of offhand because...
I believe you.
Because the SPCs are supposed to be dealing with ancillary duties. Yeah?
Yeah.
So it is not something for upward mobility. It is, you are at a level... it's like saying that you want some form of promotion for nursing assistants. Yeah? If you can draw a parallel. If you're a nursing assistant, you're a nursing assistant until you have educated yourself, you are able to go in the mainstream nursing, then you can move up to whatever level. It's the same thing with the police.
So there is an opportunity for promotion once they move beyond the current...
Yes. Okay. As long as they meet the basic requirements to things. And as a matter of fact, a lot of SPCs have become regular officers if they meet the requirement. But as I said to a caller earlier, there are minimum standards that you need to meet, especially when you're dealing with this area. And perhaps the leadership crisis that we have in the police, fire service, bodily, and other things, perhaps, it's the human resource element. I don't know. There are other factors too.
Caller, do you have anything further to add?
In spite of the age, so if they 50 years, they could still become a regular?
That has nothing to do with age. Okay. It has to do with meeting the basic requirements, which is now 5 CXEs. Yeah?
So they need to be able...
And it's not about age, because age is no longer the police force is no longer 20 years and so on. Everybody is paying NIC, and you are in there until you get to that age.
Sure. Good night. Thank you for calling.
JD and Mr. Regis again. I have a caller to the follow-up to the last caller.
Yes, please.
He asked about the SPCs, but Mr. Regis, can you comment on the special reserve because there are currently officers within the force who are part of the regulars who would make comments. Some would make comments to their friends like, don't worry if that the man is just a reserve officer. What is your take? What is your view? What can you see in terms of the powers of the reserve and whether I know they take oaths like regular officers. What can you tell us on that?
There is there is a legislation called the Special Reserve Regulations, which outlines the powers, the conditions of service, the powers of the special reserves. It is all in the Special Reserves Regulations. Yeah, it highlights when you are called out to duty, you have the same powers, privileges, and immunities as long as you are
just when
engaged.
you're called out.
No, not just when you're called out. When you have taken the oath and so on, you will have to be paid when you're called out.
Yeah.
But the powers, as long as you take the oath and you are a member of the SRPs, my understanding of the act is that you have the thing. What you need to do, however, and it applies the same to police officers. How do you move from your private mode into official mode? And we have had that issue with police officers who are dances and functions and other things, and they need to now move into official mode. If you are not in uniform, you need to declare your office. What does that mean?
Your badge.
Not just your badge. You need to say, look, I am Constable 263 Regis, and so and so. Yes, you need to, and producing your ID card will make it happen. Okay? In some cases you can't, because if a man is already behaving badly, you can't try to grab him with one hand and show him your ID with the other hand. But you need to declare your office. That is how you move from enjoying your beach party to official mode by declaring your office. It is important that you declare your office at all times, whether you're regular or reserve.
Sure. Good night, your final caller. We've lost that call. If you want to make a contribution, we have time just for one more caller, 4527347. Good night. Thank you for calling.
Good night, Jada. Good night, Ms. Regis.
Good evening.
Pastor Ben here, very interesting.
Could you speak a little louder, please, sir?
Yeah, it's Pastor Ben here, very interesting and
thank you.
informative program.
Thank you.
I must admit, you folks caught my attention as soon as I passed in the living room.
You must remember to tune in every Monday at 9 p.m.
Okay, Jada, that's a good one. I'm going to work on it after watching tonight.
Sure.
I need to make an important comment about the crime decrease, the statistics that we received. And I want to ask Ms. Regis a question afterwards.
Sure.
Okay.
I want to take this opportunity to really commend the Royal St. Lucia Police Force and the Police Commissioner in particular for the hard work they have been doing and the very good report I'm sure the citizenry, would have appreciated. When we know the concerns of certain citizens, we realize reports like these are the kinds of things people want to hear.
Indeed. And
what I would like to say is this: while we give compliments and comments to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force and the hard-working people, we must not forget to give thanks and praise to the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yes,
we have to remember his words. In John 15:4, he said, without me, you can do nothing. I must remind the public that we have started off with the National Prayer Warriors Squad. And the Prayer Warriors Squad has joined in the intensive spiritual battle against crime in St. Lucia. In 2010, when we had the 48 homicides and the thing escalated, I literally took a decision, hey, what can I do, what can we do to deal with the supernatural aspect of crime? And so I formulated and raised what we called the National Prayer Warriors Squad. And we pray every month from 2011, every month, and we look at the decline of homicides in particular, because at the time, my interest and our interest was particular homicides. And when I heard the statistics from 2011, 12, 13, 14, it gives the understanding that our concern, which is homicides, have really been, how do we put it, our prayers answered, and we need to keep thanking Jesus Christ for aiding the police, because we pray for them continuously. If you remember, Mr. Regis, I had this major convocation in the month of May. And so let's not forget St. Lucians as a people to thank the Lord and continue to join us in prayer. So Jada, I'll be inviting you at a specific time to a very special prayer rally. We are recommencing next month, God's willing, and continue every month.
Thank you so much.
Regis, a question for you. With what's happening with America, what do you think America really wants from us in St. Lucia to get back to assist us with aid for our police force?
Thank you so much for your comments, and thank you for that question. What needs to be done?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to see what opportunities the situation that we are in with with the force and the Americans and so on. What are the opportunities here? I like to look at the positive. I believe that there are opportunities for reform. There are opportunities for taking hard decisions that perhaps, if the situation was not there, would make it less palatable. I think it is also an opportunity for the force to recommit itself to upholding what is right, so that legitimacy can return to the force. You might be all of those things, but if you lose legitimacy, confidence will always be in the balance. So I'm hoping that the officers will not lose heart, will see this as a challenge to strengthen. Yes, there might be some kind of fallout, negative fallout, but I think in the main, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force will come out better at the other end of this situation than it is right now. If that does not happen, we might as well close shop. But we can't afford to close shop. I believe that, you know, the government needs to have the courage to do what is right. I think the officers in the force need to have that strength to pick themselves up from that and move forward. And we, the members of the public, need to support whatever is done to bring some sort of resolution to this thing for our sake and for the sake of our country. I stand ready. I have committed myself to do whatever needs to happen to move forward. I'm not looking for a job. I don't, you know, I'm comfortable where I'm at. But I think I have a moral responsibility. I have achieved a lot from this force. I need to give back. I need to make that force a better force than the one that I joined. I need to ensure that the lessons that I have learned, hard lessons, can be used to strengthen the organization. And that's where I'm coming from.
On that note, I want to thank you so much for being my guest on In Touch today. I want to inform my viewers that tomorrow on Inside Government, the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Vernon Francois, will be speaking to me on RSL 97 at 2 p.m. and we will be discussing the crime statistics. We'll be discussing some of the very same issues that we spoke of tonight. For example, his approach and his commitment to dealing with indiscipline and all of the allegations. And of course, we know that the Commissioner has, over the last 2 years, been very visible, dealing with the public, trying to repair the image of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force and improving relations between the public and the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. So join me tomorrow on RSL 97 at 2 p.m. for a discussion with our Commissioner of Police, Mr. Vernon Fossois. I thank you so much for joining me on In Touch tonight. As always, a very informative and interesting program. Next week, Monday, I want to invite and encourage all our young, unemployed youth to tune in to In Touch. You have been asking about the cruise ship employment program. The Prime Minister reported in his address to the nation that in the last month alone, accounting for the final quarter in this program, 91 St. Lucians were able to gain employment on Carnival Cruise Lines. And this is as a result of a program that was introduced in the last budget by the Prime Minister, the Cruise Ship Employment Program. So you can let your friends know that next week, Monday, we will be having representatives from Springboard to tell you more about the program, let you know what the requirements are and what opportunities are available for employment. Mr. Regis, again, I thank you for being my guest. I thank you so much for being very frank, very open, and I know that you're very passionate. And this is what came across throughout our discussion tonight. So again, thank you. Good night and see you next week, Monday, for In Touch.